Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wake Forest Summer Immersion Program's Fireside Chat series. I am Betsy Schneider, Program Director of the Wake Forest Summer Immersion Program, and I am so excited to be here with Marcus Sanderlin, who leads our Leadership Institute. Hey, Marcus, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Betsy. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, the purpose of this fireside chat is really for students and families to learn more about the Leadership Institute. So, why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to lead the Leadership Institute?
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation, Betsy, and sharing more about leadership in general. Background about me, high level from St. Petersburg, Florida, born and raised, thought I wanted to go into radio, television, broadcast, journalism, went to school for that very major. I went to UCF, Central Florida, go Knights. And I realized quickly, I don't like this. And so I bounced around to a number of different majors, but one thing that was consistent across my time in undergrad was leadership, getting involved, being active, serving as an RA, serving as a president, um, student liaison, etc. And so, come the end of my time, although I came to college for RTV, I wanted to make a lot of money. And so I ended up getting a degree in elementary ed, which is the opposite of making a lot of money, and left Florida and went to Michigan State University, go Spartans, acquired a degree in student affairs administration. Now, one of the reasons why I share that quick snippet of my origin story, if you will, is because if you would have asked me at any point in time, did I know what I wanted to do? Like clearly I thought I did, and I clearly didn't, right? But the consistent thing for me was leadership, being involved, being active, being an individual that could challenge others on campus and create a community that was meaningful and purposeful. And I would argue that my ability to get involved in leadership opportunities created pathways for me later on that I otherwise didn't intentionally create. And so you asked, like, why leadership? I think that leadership is a space, it is a skill set, if you will, that allows doors to be opened when the doors we thought would be there are not available to us. And so being able to work with students and encourage them on who they are as leaders. How do you lead? How are you authentic? And most importantly, how do you make the world around you a better place? And being able to be in a space with students who want that and whether they realize it or not, engage in that is so empowering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I would say about the Leadership Institute and your Leadership Institute specifically is oftentimes students come in not knowing really what to expect, but I feel like
Absolutely.
after participating in the Leadership Institute, they walk away with a very clear sense of who they are and where they want to go or who they want to be. So that is something that I will say you as an academic leader just cultivate a really strong sense of community in the four walls of that classroom, and students are doing a lot of internal work to figure out who they want to be as a leader in their young lives. So that's beautiful, Marcus. Let me move on. So that's kind of high level, right? So what
Yeah.
can students expect on a typical day in the Leadership Institute?
Yeah, absolutely. So on a typical day, what I would argue is that there's different activities, different, some say workshops, I say seminars, where we engage them in some content knowledge. So we want students thinking about different leadership competencies. So we have the engagement piece, like what are we doing? We're being hands-on, we're being thought provoking, we're being reflective. I would also say they can expect energy. I'm an individual who recognizes this is summertime. Like they could be anywhere else in the world and they're here with me, and I appreciate that. So they can expect a certain level of energy, enthusiasm, and a space where they're encouraged to be immersed in the experience. And then lastly, I would say challenged. They're going to be challenged in regards to their thoughts, how they see themselves, how they see leadership, and how they can lead even in spaces of discomfort, right? We recognize that it's easy to lead when we're with people we know, people we like, that believe the same thing we do. But when we're in spaces where that's not the case, that's where we're really able to develop those leadership muscles. And so a day could be showing up and having a reflection question, thinking about some of the content from a prior day. We might have a speaker or two come in and share from their experience, talking about leadership in different spaces. Likely we'll have some interactive engagement points where we talk to other students, work through some scenarios, And then, of course, is always the trip off campus to get them involved in actually applying leadership in their lives. And so we don't just want to talk about it, we want to be about it. And for me, creating a space where they're able to work on it here to then apply it there. And so how do we put them in situations or scenarios that they can see how this applies to their real world outside of Wake Forest?
Yeah, I love that. So, and I also feel like the way that you've structured the Leadership Institute, it's very much a building block. Every day
Sure.
is kind of another building block for their leadership tool belt, I guess we could say, because I feel like day one is very much interpersonal, identifying strengths, kind of figuring out who they are, and then day two is very much team building, intrapersonal, building relationships with others. um, Day three is kind of like
Absolutely.
pro humanitate, servant leadership focused. And then day four is those professional competencies. So I just feel like the way that it's structured, like you said, with these seminars, hands-on, maybe a field trip here and there, it kind of builds to the culmination at the
Absolutely.
end of the week, which is students kind of presenting their leadership story and their growth and evolution throughout the week, which is so impactful to listen and learn about at the end. Um, all right. So we talked about like some of the hands-on, some of the trips that students get to go on, but more concretely, what would you say are some of the most exciting field trips that students get to go on, or some of the most impactful experiences that students get to do in the Leadership Institute?
Sure. So I think there are three that really stand out to me. The highlight typically every year is the ropes course. We take students off site, we engage them in some low ropes and then high ropes activities, where, in my opinion, we really see like how do we lead in spaces of discomfort. Some students are going to get up there and love it. They'll be swinging and going and climbing. Other students, not so much. And so we want to create moments where you can be a lead or be led by a leader. Either way, how do we continue to stretch that muscle and develop that skill set? Um, the, another experience would be the poverty simulation, and that when you read it, it's like, well, what's going on there? But we must realize as leaders is it's not just the people who were around, but the people we're impacting as well. And so poverty is a real crisis that we're navigating through as a culture, as a community. And so how do we think through those who might not live the same way as we do? And so the poverty simulation, while it may at face value see a bit jarring, can be very impactful when we think about this idea of empathy and how do we put ourselves in the situation and position of others, and then use that framing to possibly influence how we move forward outside of that space. And then lastly, Second Harvest Food Bank, we get off site, and I like taking students away, and we go in and do something about that. So the poverty simulation, we see how individuals might be navigating through poverty and what that might feel like and how foreign that can be. But it's one thing to see it, a different thing to impact it. And so as leaders, that impact piece is so important. So we want to make sure our young leaders are able to apply some of their knowledge hands-on to see change in the community. And so we engage with the Second Harvest Food Bank, which is a major contributor to navigating and eradicating food scarcity and thinking through how we provide food to individuals who may not be able to provide themselves or have easy access to so. So those are three experiences that are outside the classroom. I like to think the classroom space is dynamic, but like the college experience, it's not just about what you learn in the room, but how you apply that outside that room that makes that moment in the room so meaningful. And so as we recognize the immersion program is not just immersing them in the content, but the college culture itself. And so we want to make sure we mirror that in their experience with us.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, Marcus, because that is such an impactful day overall. Just the poverty simulation, learning, having the empathy conversation, then traveling to Second Harvest Food Bank. Typically, we hear from the executive director of Second Harvest Food Bank, who is a Wake Forest alum. And then the students get to do hands-on volunteering. And so, one thing I mentioned earlier without any context was this concept of pro humanitate. And so, for those of you that don't know, Wake Forest University's motto is Pro Humanitate, which means for humanity. So I think it's really important, especially in the Leadership Institute, that we are kind of having a full day devoted to Pro Humanitate and kind of instilling that in our Leadership Institute. And that I think is one of the coolest things about this institute. Okay, so that was a really good sense. I feel like we have a good sense of what the Leadership Institute is and kind of what students can expect. But we also can acknowledge that the Leadership Institute is a little bit vague in terms of it's not necessarily, you can't put it in a box in terms of this is your college major, this is your career pathway. And many of our other institutes, are very much focused on a college major or a career pathway.
Mhm.
So if a student is considering one of those more concrete institutes, whether it's business or medicine or law, and they're also considering the Leadership Institute, what are some of the biggest differences and how can students decide which might be a better fit for them?
Sure. Betsy, I appreciate this question. And one thing I did not mention earlier is at Wake Forest, I serve as the director of career education and coaching in the School of Business. So my job is helping students in the School of Business navigate into their jobs after Wake Forest. And so the question of like leadership versus, everyone else that might be a bit more focused is one I'm excited to speak to. Other institutes are phenomenal. They will provide a deep understanding of a particular concept, a particular industry, or function. And students who are interested in those spaces will find so much benefit from going and being in those spaces. Period. Next paragraph. However, leadership is one skill that cuts across every area. And so no matter what section you're going into, a commonality is eventually, if you play your cards right, you'll be in a position of leadership. And honestly, for the students, scholars who join me, I'll challenge even that you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader. Stay tuned there. But from the career side, when I'm talking to students about navigating their time at Wake Forest, and these are seniors, they're juniors, I'm top of my class and I'm getting a business school degree, how do I set myself apart? And I ask them a very simple question. When you apply to a job, you're going to apply with a lot of other students, many of which having the exact same degree, and for many similar experiences as you, say, for example, a business degree. What allows you to set yourself apart are the intangibles, the transferable skills, or now, should I say, power skills, leadership now being a big part of that. So many people will have a degree and understand the industry, but few people will come with the thoughtfulness of how do I apply this knowledge in an impactful and thoughtful way. And so in the Leadership Institute, while we're not going to talk about in depth a particular area, what we will give are the tools you need, the toolkit, I believe you mentioned earlier, Betsy, to then say, hey, I'm going into medicine, I'm going into sports, I'm going into you fill in the blank industry, and I'm doing so with a lens for people, for impact, for development, for holistic competency. So I'm just not going to be a high performer. I'm going to create other high performers around me to move the needle. And so when we get into it, there's theories behind this, but one of which I prescribe to is the T-shaped professional. That speaks to having depth and breadth. And a lot of times we focus on this depth and the breadth where the money's at. So you really want to make sure that students understand how to lead, how to be trailblazers, how to be innovators. And so what I've come to find is some students come in knowing I really want to be in leadership. I can't wait for it. And they lean in. Others takes a bit more time because they were thinking, man, I thought I was going to be in law. And here I am learning about my personality type and how I influence people. But surprisingly enough, those are also the students that a month later, Professor S, I want to say thank you because I didn't even want to be there. But when I left there, I saw how important it was for me to be able to empower other people who aren't thinking as holistic as me. How can I engage people who don't have as much as me? And how can I influence others in a way that aligns with my value, skills, and interests? And so, Betsy, a long-winded way of saying it's the intangibles that move the needle, and leaders are needle movers.
That was perfect. That whole response was amazing. I always say, oftentimes parents call me on the phone asking about certain institutes. And I always say, like, yes, do medicine, yes, do law. But if you were to do anything, the Leadership Institute is so impactful because also you talked about holistic competency. a student can come to our medicine institute thinking, I want to be a doctor, I want to go into healthcare, I want to be a doctor. Well, the opportunities that they have in that institute, very career focused, might make them realize, like, actually, I really don't like being in the hospital. Actually, I don't love doing cadaveric dissections. With the Leadership Institute, I feel like all students walk away only wanting more. There's never actually, I don't think I want to be a leader. So I just think it's a really great opportunity for any high school student before college to learn so much about themselves, their values, their strengths, and then kind of just giving them a sense of purpose before going to college where things become a little bit,
More complicated.
wild. So,
Yes, yes.
I I think what you do and what you've built and what we've cultivated year after year is just rich, a very, very rich and meaningful experience for students that they will continue to kind of go back to in small decisions that they make and big decisions that they make. But I do love the concept of those intangible skills that you kind of allow students to develop throughout the course of the Leadership Institute. Awesome. Okay. So now let's kind of get through more of the tangible things about this institute. So, where does the Leadership Institute take place on campus? Where will students be? Kind of talk us through what it would look like.
Sure. So we'll be in the classroom space, more auditorium style, very intentionally, because I want to be able to connect to students. We'll be in various roles that will mix throughout the day, and that will allow students to also meet different people. So if students are thinking about, I'm going to sit next to Johnny and Sarah the entire time, that's not going to be the case. We're going to move them around because we want them to build connections in a meaningful way. In regards to cross campus, we'll spend most of the time in classroom spaces, but we will get out to do some group work and some intentional thought. There will also be a capstone project, more to come on that, which will pull individuals outside of the classroom and have them working even beyond time that we are together. I missed it back into that question, Messi.
No, well, that was perfect. Yes, students. So students will be on Wake's campus in one of our classrooms. But another question I have about, more of the concrete things, logistics about the Leadership Institute, what do students need to bring with them?
Got you. So in regards to things students need to bring, a notebook or something to write with. There's research that shows that when you write things down, that you retain them more thoughtfully and meaningfully. So as much as you want to type away, I would encourage everyone to bring a tangible thing to write with. You need closed-toed shoes, and we go to the ropes course as well as Second Harvest. We need to make sure our toes are taken care of. It's also a standard policy for safety. For me, the biggest thing, well, closed-toed shoes are really important, but it's just open mindset. Like we really want to make sure that students come in with a willingness to engage with people different than themselves. I think it's a hallmark of leadership is that we're able to be open to that and be thoughtful around that. That willingness to lean in and participate is going to be foundational, as students will likely see should they enroll. I try to bring it, right? I want to make sure that we're bringing energy and not saying every student's going to have that same level of energy, but I want to encourage them and challenge them to get out what they put in and to say, hey, I'm going to spend 4.5 days, 5 days here. Let me make sure I maximize my, investment or my parents' investment. But the one thing I tell students this, you can't get back your time. Like you can't buy back time at all. So if you're going to have to invest it, you can either invest it or waste it. Don't waste it. So that energy piece, like showing up, I mentioned that as something to bring because our attitude is what influences our latitude. And so when we think through how we enter into spaces, that is foundational. So we can buy some of the shoes from Target, but I can't buy you a different attitude. So be thoughtful around that when preparing for the institute.
Yeah, so important. No matter what institute you end up attending, I think that is making the most out of your time is so, so important. All right, so moving forward, how do you think students' experiences in the Leadership Institute might connect with their future careers? And what skills or insights do you think they'll walk away with that will be most valuable to them in the future?
Yeah. I think leadership in the institute prepares every student to be better in all the areas. And I mentioned that because we work through so many different kind of avenues of processing. We'll work through self-exploration and self-reflection. How do you think through who you are, how you show up? We'll evaluate how people might show up around us, different styles of leadership. We'll get into some career theory and some framing around how people might make decisions. We'll get into the Myers-Briggs typology and how their lenses, while not wrong to you, may not seem right, right? And so thinking through how can we understand others around us. I think our ability to share our thoughts and our perspectives and our insights is foundational. An area that students will definitely be engaging with me in, and this is a key thing that I challenge all students I work with to do, is ask questions. So how do we listen to individuals? How do we lean in? How do we ask thoughtful questions? Because we need to be seekers of knowledge. Now, I mentioned all those again because they're transferable skills. And so as we think about students going to college, it's maybe a next step for them. Those are going to be things that faculty members want to see. We want to see students who are engaged in the classroom, who are asking questions, taking notes, ergo, while we write things down. And I'll share more whys behind what's from in our time together. I tell students, typically on the first day, I'm not trying to just make better leaders. I'm trying to make better people who will be leaders. And so, in that the better people piece is when we learn some of these things that you might not notice, but on the other side, we notice. And as you work through those skills from college to professional spaces, from entry level to mid to advanced level, those are the intangibles that you just notice. It's almost like when you watch a professional athlete. Like if you watch individuals play, there's certain things athletes do. Just like I'm not sure how that happened, but man, that's sweet. Like you, and so as they do that, right, they develop that muscle. It happens. I've been thinking about it, and so the Leadership Institute creates a space where we might be thinking about it, but I guarantee by the end it'll be so much more organic. And then that's where we go back to school. We go back to our part-time jobs, our leadership roles, our teams, our sports, and we begin to apply these things and we see the results from the application. So this is just a catalyst into a better tomorrow for these students.
It just makes me, I mean, this conversation is just leading me to why aren't all of these things cultivated throughout every year of school for students? Because it
Yeah,
does, just explicitly talking about how do you ask thoughtful questions? How do you listen? There's so many really important things that need to be explicitly like talked about and framed for students to be successful leaders that could be happening, and many schools are doing that, but I do just think the Leadership Institute is such a great opportunity for students to really harness those that live inside each of them. And as you mentioned, it's just a matter of flexing that muscle and exercising it so that it does become rote almost. Um, okay, this is a great conversation, Marcus. Thank you. So let's talk about some of the leaders that students will be interacting with throughout the week, because I know that we have quite a few guest presenters. We're interacting with undergraduates, maybe some graduate students, other faculty and staff at Wake Forest. So talk us through who students will be interacting with throughout the week and just, how they're able to network.
sure. So Betsy, one of the hallmarks I think that's true for leadership every year, and we've had this conversation, is the goal is to make it a little bit different for every student who comes through. And so every year, every program, every week is going to have a different series of speakers, different set of experiences, a couple core hallmarks, right? Ropes, course, etc. But every week there'll be a different individual. And so I'll speak high level to the types of individuals who'll be there. So we'll have some faculty members come in and speak about leadership from the academic side and how they see leadership possibly in the classroom. We'll have leaders at Wake Forest come in, from VPs to directors, other leaders across the board, to share what leadership looks like, not as a student or even as a faculty member, but as an administrator running an organization like Wake Forest University. We'll see leaders in the community from nonprofit spaces that are doing the good work in the community and leading that change and that charge. And when they'll be able to see how finance or marketing or other even sectors roll into leadership in that way. We'll have individuals that have done career coaching and development to speak to students about resumes, and some even that have been noted for their capacity around interviewing and storytelling. We also have students, and I think it's important to bring in students from Wake Forest to share a bit about even leadership next step. I think we create this big stigma around leadership that you have to be an executive, CEO, C-suite, like to be a leader. And so many students overlook the step that at every season of life, there are leaders. There's a leader in the kindergarten classroom, like there's a leader in their classroom today. And so you want to talk from and hear from the current Wake Forest students, many of which they will know, spoiler alert there, as they share about how leading even in the immersion program can serve as a catalyst toward internship to full-time roles. And so we want to provide space for every student to see the different tiers of leadership and the very scope of leadership. And hopefully they can see themselves in at least one of the speakers that shows up and shares with them during their time at Wake Forest.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of different, a very diverse array of leaders that students will get to engage with and connect with. And I think it's important because, as you mentioned, every leader is different. So, and we have such a diverse array of students who come through the Leadership Institute. So hopefully there will be someone who really inspires, who a student's really able to connect with during the week. All right, so now we are at my favorite part of these fireside chats because we get to learn more about our academic leaders. Um, so Marcus, I would love to hear, what is a fun fact about yourself that would totally surprise your high school students?
Yeah, I run Spartan races. For those who do not know, Spartan races, those are OCR, obstacle course races. Essentially, I go out in the woods and in various nature-esque spaces and trek through 5K, 10K, half marathon distances, carrying boulders, going over walls, under barbed wire, through fire, all the things. I think the funnest fact of this is I hate the outdoors. I hate being sweaty. I hate being hot. And so even if for those who come, I have a pocket fan I bring out if I get too hot, even teaching. And so it's so counter. But backstory, I used to run cross country. Fun fact, I was the captain. Shout out to me. Led my team to state. We didn't win state, but I led my team there. And so I don't like running anymore, but I enjoy the idea of pushing my body and my limits, right, to test myself. And so Spartan racing allows for me to integrate the running and the cardio and the fitness and the weight and the strength all into a space. I pay to play, go do my thing, go home. So not a first place winner. I'm on the not on the podium or anything, but in regards to challenging myself to be better, that's an area I do so and try to run a couple every year.
Yeah, that's great. I did know that about you. So whenever this question comes up with academic leaders, I'm always wondering, like, is this going to be something I already know, or is this going to be a new fun fact? So that is a fun fact I did know about you, but that is so awesome.
I'm
Um,
gonna give you a new one next time, Betsy.
yeah, okay. All right, this is another favorite. So rapid fire questions. What is your favorite book?
Oh man. Let's see. A good one. The One Thing. Great
Okay.
book. I can't get author off the top of my head right now, but essentially the premise is that we spend so much of our lives trying to do all the things. And if we just focus on one particular thing and the one right thing, we'll navigate towards success. And so I like it because, in life, we sometimes associate success with all the many things we get done when the book argues that if you can just do like the one thing really well, and of course there might be different things, right? One thing's for you, but if there's a focus there, that you'll find success. And it blew my mind, right, in regards to just how we can we shift thinking. Something as simple as the book argues that if you're driving, like if you do anything but drive, like you're not driving to your full capacity. And so how dangerous it can be to even be thinking through, I'm listening to a podcast and talking to a friend and thinking about my day. And so all the things that kind of pull from your focus allows you to do things at a lower level or lower capacity. So it's been enlightening to think through how can I personally and challenge others around me to really hone in on the one thing. If I'm in a meeting, let's focus on the one thing, not be in the meeting, but also sending an email and thinking about what else can I do in the time. Let's focus on that one thing. So that's probably one of my favorite reads in the last year or two.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a really powerful book, especially in the time of our phones, our smartphones, when there's always that um
Always.
taking our attention away from the one thing. That's a good one. I'm going to make a summer immersion reading list with all of our academic
Yeah.
leaders' favorite books and our staff's favorite books. So that's forthcoming, everyone. Get excited about that. Okay, next rapid fire question. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
Oh man, I saw the questions and should have prepped more. Um, so my favorite TV show, I have several, but The Office is like it's just it's without question top tier. In regards to favorite TV show, my favorite movie is probably Jurassic Park. Like shout out to old school movie, but I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan.
So it's so funny you say Jurassic Park because that's what Paul Whitener said this morning in the Fireside Chat.
Word, we
Academic
have to
leader of the
connect.
Technology Institute, also a Jurassic Park fan. That's great.
Huge.
I love the soundtrack of Jurassic Park. I think the
It's
soundtrack to Jurassic Park is phenomenal.
it's beautiful
Um,
and it's emotionally charged. Like I get emotional when I hear. I'm like,
it
so
really.
yes.
Okay, good segue. What are you currently listening to? Either music or a good podcast you've been listening to lately?
Yeah, so I'm kind of going through my 2010, 2013 era of like hip hop, R&B, pop. I would say in regards to artists, right now I'm kind of rocking with like Kendrick Lamar, The Weeknd, Chance the Rapper is always in play for me as well. So J. Cole. So a little bit of like that thought-provoking lyricism, and then some things that remind me of simpler times from the old school playlists.
Yeah, I love that. What is your favorite food?
Cake. I love sweets. Ergo, why I'm not running cross country anymore. No, I honestly, I would say pizzas, barbecue pizza with like a really well, like a deep dish barbecue, maybe even. Yeah, like a Detroit style, and then cake. Cake and ice cream specifically.
Is there a specific type of cake or just any cake?
So great question. So the ice cream in particular, well, now fun. So fun fact about me, began making my own ice cream. So I do that now. So I make my own ice cream, and I can like actually throw in mix-ins and make it the way I want it. So I make my cookie dough ice cream with a little bit of like caramel drizzle, and if I can find them like wet walnuts, that's my base. And then cake, a vanilla cake that's like really well made, that's very moist with a vanilla like frosting, like simple because it blends with the ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
So that combination,
Wow,
chef's kiss.
I cannot believe
So I snuck the fun fact in there.
yeah, I did not know you were making your own ice cream. That flavor sounds incredible. So we might have to have you bring some this summer to try
I'll
that.
bring a scoop or two.
Um, all right, next question. Do you have any pets?
I do not. I really want a puppy though. I want a puppy so bad, but I got little kids. So
Yeah.
once my youngest is 3, I'm getting a puppy. So right now it's just fish, and we're working so hard to keep them boys alive. So it's a great stress test. But when I was younger, I had a dog, and so I look forward to getting a dog very soon. So maybe this summer. Stay tuned.
Okay. Ooh, that's very exciting. Um, we already kind of talked about your favorite hobby, but do you have any other hobbies that you want to mention?
Yeah. So honestly, like there's two. So I'm a dad. For those who join the leadership seminar, you'll hear immersion program, you'll hear more about my kids. I bring them into conversation often. So like coaching my kids like sports teams is like a hobby. I can't say that I'm the best player, but I'm a phenomenal coach. Like that's like, and we'll get into leadership styles, coaches in my style. But coaching my kids right now, as of today, my son's undefeated. Our basketball team is doing great, so I'm super excited for that. And then as silly as it might be, like video games, I dibble dabble. I don't have time to play them often, but I love getting on Madden. I love, playing some Fortnite here and there. I'm not on Call of Duty or anything crazy like that, but I enjoy sitting back, playing some games, just kind of relaxing. So those are two hobbies I try to integrate into life just to find balance outside of the work and all the other things that are happening.
Our academic leader for the Psychology Institute, Dr. Christian Waugh, he's a video gamer too. So
Gaming's in.
I'm
We're back.
finding all
We
these
double up.
connections.
We need to
Um,
have leader connections so we can make sure we hang out after our sessions are over.
Yes. Okay, this is the last rapid fire. Favorite place you've ever traveled?
Mm. Um, I had the opportunity to go abroad when I was an undergrad, and I went to Croatia. That was phenomenal. Loved being there. Just it's great seeing a different country, different space in the world. And so that probably was my favorite place to go and travel. Yeah, just I would definitely encourage if anyone can to go abroad. It's definitely something that can change your life in regards to cultural awareness and competency. Um, Besides that, Disney World, go Mickey Mouse. But
Have your kids
I
gone to
would
Disney
encourage.
yet?
Oh, we've gone too many times Disney. Gotta stop that. Mickey Mouse, he owes me money. We've been so much. So, but I mean, it's family space as well. So it's great to go. So if you can go Disney, go see Mickey.
Yeah. All right, we're winding this down, the fireside chat. So thank you for this really awesome conversation, Marcus. Um, if you had to describe the Leadership Institute in just 3 words, what would they be?
Energizing, dynamic, and impactful. I think those summarize the holistic nature of it. Um, it's a special experience. Been doing it for several years now. Betsy kind of alluded to it. Every session is different, every cohort is different, but I learn so much from students, and I hope I'm able to give so much to students as well. And so I think those 3 words really kind of wrap up the beginning, middle, end product of the experience.
Yeah, I agree with those words for sure. Um, you've also already alluded to this, but finish this sentence. You should experience the Leadership Institute if you're someone who blank.
Want to have a positive impact and be the best version of yourself. If you're
Mhm.
an individual who's thinking, how can I show up better, make my school a better place, make my community a better place, and elevate my voice in different rooms that I walk into. If I want to be an individual that has an impact in future career pathways and is able to be someone that maybe doesn't have my name in lights, but is an individual that's known for being a change agent, then the Leadership Institute is a catalyst into all those things, and I'd argue many more.
Yeah, yeah, that was great. Um, what is your favorite thing about working with high school students in the Leadership Institute?
Yeah. Um, so fun fact about me, I actually never wanted to work in higher education until like after my graduate program. I used to want to be a superintendent for a while. And one of the reasons that I wanted to be a superintendent is recognizing that the way we make tomorrow a better place is by working with our K through 12 students. And so I love working with high school students because they're in such a special time of their life where there's so much that's been learned, but there's still so much more to do. The students who come to the Leadership Institute, regardless of kind of the impetus of what drove them into the door, find themselves in a space where they're around individuals from all over the US with all different types of backgrounds, that all want different things, but have a commonality of seeing Wake Forest is a place to become better. And so I think that I've come to find those students are just such special individuals. And it's a reminder of the great things that are to come in our future and how we can have conversations and anything from what leadership is and the values needed to lead well to what's common language you're using in your high school spaces um, positions us to do that good work. And so as a person who works in the college space, a question that comes up from the K through 12 college sector is whose job is it to prepare students for tomorrow? Is it once they get to college, they get it once before they go to college, they should know it. And I argue it's everyone's job. And so I look at this as being a way that I can do both those things. I can coach students and support students at the high school level, and then students can pop on Wake Forest, and I see you when you get here. And for students who go through my institute and ask anyone who's come through, I always offer coffee, at least our first meeting once you get to Wake Forest, because I think that the continuation of holistic growth is impactful. And so it's empowering for me to know that like I can talk to a student as a first year student, and then 10 years later, 5 years later, they're leading and changing and impacting based on maybe a 30-minute conversation we had or that we didn't have, but them and a colleague or a student had. And so that all those things and more are a ongoing reminder every summer of why the Summer Immersion Program Leadership Institute is a special place to be.
It is, yeah. And there's nothing like it, it's totally unique. It's one of a kind. It's one of the only institutes that you can get all of that will just serve you for years to come. And I would say, it's like compounding interest. You're building these skills now, and the more you flex those muscles, it'll just serve you more and more throughout your life. And I will also mention, Professor S, Marcus, the students know him by. You so often have students who come back, who have done the Leadership Institute and who reach out to you, come visit you on campus, end up coming to Wake Forest. You've even had past Leadership Institute students work for you as a teaching assistant in the Leadership Institute. So I just think that kind of shows a very, very cool kind of full circle moment that you've done it for enough years where you're starting to experience high school students who were once in the Leadership Institute to being undergrads at Wake and wanting to give back to the Leadership Institute. So that's been cool to see too.
Beautiful thing. Absolutely.
Okay, our last question of our fireside chat, why Wake?
Yeah. Wake's a great place to be. Full transparency. I'm a public school kid. I went to public school for K through 12, went to public school for undergrad, both, and grad school. And I've been to big schools, 50,000, 60,000. As career opportunities arose, I found myself at Wake Forest University, and it is a unique space and place in so many ways. One of which is you really go from a larger space, like being a number, to being a person. The connections, the access, the engagement that is promoted at Wake it's real talk. Like we walk the walk. And so coming to Wake, I've worked out with students. I played my first time playing pickleball with a student. I've met parents. I've gone on trips with students to Charlotte and different places. You really get to know the students, who they are, and who they aspire to be. And for me, as a career practitioner, an individual who's invested in that process, so often you can see a student once or twice. I might see a student, one time as a first year student, and then one time when they graduate, maybe at a bigger school. When I'm seeing students all the time. If I walk out this room right now and go in to get some soda at the soda machine, I'm going to see a student have a conversation about things that are happening. And so the ability to have access and to engage, pour into students, and to see them succeed is a reminder at the higher education level of the role we play. As a person, as I mentioned before, I'm a coach, I'm a developer, I'm a mentor, I'm an individual who wants to pour into people to make them better. And as I mentioned before, the college time following the high school season is such a space of growth where we're not quite adulting, but we're definitely not at home anymore. And so being able to be an extension of family, an extension of connection, to really pour into students and engage them. I love Wake Forest. I love being a Demon Deacon and being able to do that good work with colleagues and people who want the same, which is student success across the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all about that community, and you definitely feel it when you step on campus at Wake Forest. So thank you so much for sharing that, Marcus. Well, everyone, I hope that you learned something new about our Leadership Institute, something new about Professor S. Marcus, as I've been calling him throughout this chat. But if you do want to learn more about any of our institutes, feel free to check out our websites, of course, but also email us at summerimmersion@wfu.edu. Thank you, Marcus, for being here today. Thank you for chatting with us and talking about the Leadership Institute. We appreciate you.
Take care. Thanks, Betsy. Appreciate it as well.